Now, hello everyone. Welcome to the stream again. Today, we are going to work on the TLS auto negotiation code that we were working on a couple months ago, and that is still pretty exciting. So, for a reminder, there are a couple components here, and the overall goal for this work is to reduce the need to manually manage TLS certificates for setting up clusters, especially in the simple scenario of users starting from scratch. Now, some code was implemented already in the past few months. We have some teamwork to create a protocol to negotiate those TLS certificates between nodes automatically. Then we have created a new subcommand in Cockroach called Cockroach Connect that is dedicated to only setting up TLS certificates in the directory where they are expected for a regular server. And the next step on this list of steps was to improve the Cockroach Start command to also do this automatically when provided some flags. Now, that part was not yet implemented because in the process of testing the work before that, we found that there was a problem. Like the functionality that was presumably implemented had a bug, and so we were not. So the certificates were produced in the right directory, but they were not produced in the right way with as a result that the nodes would not be able to connect to each other using their certificates afterwards. So that was kind of a serious snag, and it prevented further testing and qualification. So the very good thing that happened is that 2 weeks ago, Bilal of Twitter fame has found a cause for that problem. That there was a particular certificate file that was not being populated in the right place. Well, in fact, it was there, but not with the right file name. And CockroachDB is somewhat particular about the file names of TLS certificates for reasons. And so, assumedly, this fix is going to help us. And that means that we can move forward with the roadmap on these issues that we were working on. So, what is going to happen today? We are going to take this code, this change by Bilal from a while ago, try it out, verify manually that it does indeed fix the issues that we found last time. And after we verify manually that indeed that issue has been fixed, we are going to extend the unit test for the Cockroach Connect command that we started to implement a couple of weeks ago to use all the functionality and actually test it out properly. That will bring us one step forward, which is confidence that the Connect command is stable and actually does what it says on the label with an end-to-end test. So today's first phase, try it out manually, and then encode the testing in a unit test that does the same. And after we succeed with this, and our unit test seems to be robust, we can move forward with the next step in this roadmap here, which is to enhance the CockroachDB start command with similar functionality. All right, so that is the plan for today. So this branch here, unfortunately, is not yet merged in the CockroachDB repository, meaning that as a starting point, I'm going to check out this branch manually. So how do we do this? We fetch it. So it's from Bilal's Cockroach repository, and we are going to say it's Bilal. So we fetch Bilal's branch on our computer, then we can check it out. And now we have this. We can build the executable. All right. Now, what we will need to do here, so let me close up those files a little bit, which are not any more relevant. What we will need to do from here on is to first step out of the editor and do a manual test of our new functionality. So for this, we go to this issue, and then we are going to rerun this manual test. Probably we can make do with just one machine. We're going to use the same IP address on both cases. All right. So we have a first directory and second directory. So we have two directories here, and we're going to run Cockroach Connect from them. Oops. All right, so what are the flags? Num expected initial nodes. We have two processes. Our secret token is going to be some key. For the first one, the listen address is this with some ports number. Do we need to have the HTTP address as well? Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then we're going to copy paste this command. Oh, search there, search. Yes, apparently there is already a process running here. Oh, yeah, never mind. This is the 2 here. All right. And now HTTP address with number 1 here and number 8 here. Oh, and again with a 2 here. Oh, and I need a join command. All right. So what this is telling us now is that the handshake has completed and the Cockroach Connect has completed. We knew that was the case before, but now we have those files in this search directory, and presumably now those files will be properly usable, which was not the case last time. So let's try it out. Yeah, so we do need to create a root certificate for both cases. That is going to be search here. Oops. Does it not? And key say client. Yeah. And we are going now to do the same on the other nodes. So like those two directories simulate like we had two different servers that can speak to each other. So the certificates in one case cannot reach out the certificate in the other case. And now we're going to start a cluster where we are simulating starting two different nodes using those certificates. Start. Do we need to say anything else? Nope. Okay. And we're going to do a self join. And now we are going to do the same on the other side with a different set of parameters. And now we have two nodes on different directories that are presumably waiting for an init command. And we knew from before that this tended not to work with the next step. But we are first going to check that we don't have any errors in the log files, because that was a symptom we had last time. All right. So we are not saying the same error messages we had last time here. That is good. It's the same here. And then we have the init message waiting. That's okay. Let's do this. All right. So now we don't have this message anymore. That is very good. And now we can do the init command. The init command. And then now this command has succeeded. We got a node ID here and a node ID here. That will solve this. And if we look at the log files, we can see that this seems healthy. And it seems healthy too. This is very good. So Bilal's change has indeed solved this issue. So when that PR from Bilal merges, and that issue will get closed, and that means we can move forward from here. Now that this command seems to be doing its job properly, that means that we can complete the unit test work that we were doing previously. So we had an end-to-end tickle test that was incomplete last time, because it was not able to succeed. The test was detecting there was a problem, and so it was commented out. Hey, good morning, Rail. Thanks and welcome to be here. And so we see here that there was a comment in this code explaining that, well, we couldn't start the server. That's different now. We can start the server. That means that we can now enable this test. So actually this to-do was incorrect. It's not actually about the advertised address. It was about this issue here. So we're going to ignore this to-do, and then we're going to try to uncomment this. So let's read the source code of the test to see how this test makes sense. So if you've never seen this, it's a tickle test. Tickle is a programming language from a long time ago, which is aimed at testing interactive commands. So the way it works more or less is that the source code of the test says what to send the command as if it was typed from a human, and then it will verify that the command prints out certain things as if they were seen by a human. And we use tickle because many commands, including CockroachDB, don't behave the same when looked at on a terminal as when they are run from a unit test, for example. And so we use tickle for that reason. All right. So what is here? What the test is doing? All right. So connect single node will generate the files, and then we check that the server can be started. Connect to it, and that should succeed. Then we stop the server, and then we start a second shell. So there is a shell, first shell here, and then we start a second shell. And then we check that the connect command terminates for 2 nodes. And we copy those source to the artifacts for if the test fails, this way we get a copy of the files in the right location. Then we generate the 2 client certificates. And now here we are going to start the servers. So this was not working previously, and now it should be starting properly, which we did not have before. and let's see what it says. Initial startup. Is that I don't understand the initial startup completed. Is that something that is printed? Oh, it's here. Yes. Okay. So we see this here printed. And then we can expect after this 2 messages. Initialize new cluster and here initialize new node. Let's verify this. See if this test now succeeds properly. We need to break the interrupted 2 existing servers. And we are going now to test this manually. So how do we do this? SQL tests are slightly more complicated to run from the command line. So first of all, let's kill any processes we have in the background. See log files that may have generated by a previous invocation, and whatever Unix socket may have been created by the processors. And now we can run the expect command. D for debugging, because our test might fail and we want to have details about what's going on. Send the test file. And then, so we pass the tcl file name and then the cockroach binary. And now we wait. So the initial startup completed seems to have worked, but we do not see cockroach node starting here. Let's see what the output what the output log file says, because this test has failed. It did not seem to succeed. Yeah, okay, so here we see a separate issue, which was actually probably what the original message to do. So connection refused. So what is hostname.txt? Hostname, all right. This is not using the same address. So what is it that it's trying to do here? Which address is it listening on? So it is the IP address is the right one. The DNS address is the right one. And what address is the process listening on? Do we have that? Because here we are seeing 2. Okay, so we should have 2 processes now running in memory. Oh, we have just 1. Oh, we have just 1. This TCL file reminds me of your dial-up scripts rail. Yes, indeed. Although I guess that dial-up scripts were maybe using a different script language. Yeah, I understand what's going on here. These are synchronous 2 steps. So this cockroach node starting is not going to occur before the start command for the second node is completed and we have issued a init command, obviously. So that is actually fine. So now we need to initialize the cluster. All right. Expect the startup messages. Let's do this again. Oh, yes, we need to remove, say, source directory. See, success has been obtained. The init command has succeeded and both nodes have started. So we have success here, and we are now going to check whether we can connect to those clients. See, the SQL command was able to connect to both nodes. There was no error. And, well, the two processes now are still running. So we are going to try some out. And we are going to verify on both cases that we have the same cluster ID. So this is a cluster ID on node 1. And this is the cluster ID on node 2. And we see the same cluster ID and everything is fine. We achieved success. And now we need to stop those two servers. How do we stop them? Did those things save their server PIDs? No, they did not. So let's see, how is server stop implemented again? Pit file. Okay. All right. Second server doesn't want to shut down. This is actually maybe not entirely surprising because we're looking at a shutdown process that doesn't handle properly, say shut down when there are more than one node. Obviously, if there is replication, the shutdown process will have to wait until the node is up-replicated to another node, and if there is no other. Oh, hi, Tracky Jackie in the chat. What kind of software developer are you? I don't know. Probably the old kind. I have white hair on my head. I don't know exactly what the question is about. Do you want to explain what you would like to know? Then I might be able to answer it better. Thank you. All right, this test appears to have succeeded. Okay. All right, so we are going to create a new branch. And we are going to commit this change. Since this test now is working. So, Tracky Jackie, you are a new CS student. What should I go and better scope, but also I'm a bit low on math problems? Well, let's talk about that for a second. So, welcome Tracky Jackie on the chat, and very good question you're asking. So, what kind of expectations do you have about your study, in fact? So, okay, there are two different questions that come here. Number one, what is math really for computer science? And the other is, can you have a good study even if you're not good at math today? Well, let's talk about math for a little bit. So I have studied math a lot myself because I like it, and I happened to be pretty good. And I wasn't good because I worked very hard. I was good because I liked it. So I kind of cheated in that way. And after that, I use math all the time. And in my work today, the things I've learned of math come up in different ways. There are parts of math that are super important. I would say algebra, I would use regularly. Calculus, occasionally. One thing that I'm using much more today, but I was actually bad at, is statistics. So probability and statistics is actually pretty important in when you're a programmer. And so it's worthwhile thinking about stability and statistics and probability as a area of math that is actually pretty nice and important to work on. But you don't need to be very good at it initially. You just need to understand it well. But at the same time, so I'm saying you should, but you shouldn't really listen to me. And the truth of the matter is, when I was at school, I was actually very bad at stats and probability. And I only started learning about them properly when I was 30 years old, or maybe later. So maybe you don't need to know everything right away during your study. Maybe you will learn about it afterwards. But what I'm trying to say is that there are parts of math that are actually pretty important. So for me, these are algebra, statistics, and probability. And the algebra bits, I would say, were kind of useful pretty quickly. The truth of the matter as well is that some parts of math are actually very important to become a better programmer in general, in terms of thinking properly. So everything that has to do with solving equations, understanding the logic of proofs is very important to verify the code you're writing, to ensure that you're not writing mistakes in the code. Like, it's the formalisms that come with math make you a programmer able to avoid many bugs, many kinds of bugs, and it reduces the need for other people to review your code. So math is important in that way. And at the same time, I also know programmers who are not good at math, and they're still successful programmers. So what can I say? It's a big world. There are different ways to think about this. You are asking, what should I go and better scope? So I actually don't understand that part of your sentence. If you want to explain your question a bit more and put more words into it, maybe I will be able to answer that. All right. By now, maybe this PR has been merged already. Has it not? Not yet. Okay, still currently being processed. So let's push this into the GitHub repository. And we are going to ignore, say, first thing, and then only use the second thing. And ensure we have the proper title without truncation in here. And then allow. And then this. Here. Cool. All right, so we have this now going on. Let's see, because I think I remember that there was an issue reported around the connect command around. Was it not? I don't remember. I thought there was a test failure in that area, but apparently I am misremembering. Oh, here it is. Let's see. Test init handshake. Let's try this. Apparently, maybe there is more. Yes, this one. Yes. Cool. All right. Let's investigate those failing tests. They are maybe trying to tell us something important. And so if they are, we can investigate them a little bit. Cool. So, am I fixing a bug? So that's your next question. Well, I am investigating a test failure. So when a test fails, there are 3 different possibilities to understand what's going on. One possibility is there is a bug, the test is failing because the bug is triggering the test to fail. And so in that case, the test is all right and the code is wrong. And in that case, we need to fix the bug. There is a second case where the test is wrong and the code is right. And that can happen too. In that case, we need to fix the test. And the third case is the test is right, the code is right, but the infrastructure, the computer or whatever else on the machine where the test runs is broken in some other ways. And that we call that infrastructure problems. In that case, there is not much we can do. And then we just push the issue to someone else to fix the infrastructure, because all the programming work requires the infrastructure to be okay. Otherwise, we can do our work properly. All right, so you're asking software tester. Am I a software tester? Well, that is part of my job. In some organizations, the job of software tester is separate from the job of programmer. But in my experience, all programmers are at some point software testers as well. Like, people who write code have to test their code all the time, repeatedly. And also, very importantly, being able to understand when there are problems in the code. So like there is a test and there is a job of finding out if the test fails, what the failure is about, like I just explained. In that case, well, I'm doing that today because I need to improve the quality of some area of work. And therefore, it's important for my job to look at existing test failures in the area that I'm working on to see if there are any things that I should be improving in order to avoid problems for other people. But it's not like I'm a software tester. I'm actually in the process of improving some area that I'm supposed to work on before I can do the improvements I want. Because if I make an improvement and there are other problems under it, like there is currently a bug and I don't know about it. And then I make some improvement and then I test my improvement and then I fail in my testing of my new code. Then either the problem I'm observing is due to my change or is due to some other unrelated change that was there before. And that's a problem because if there are multiple possible causes, then I won't know what to do about it. So in terms of return on investment, it's much more efficient to first address existing known problems in the area I'm working on before I come and add more stuff to it. So that's what we're picking up here. So there is this failing test going on here, and it might be related to something I'm supposed to work on, and therefore I'm going to investigate it to see what's going on. So if this says it fails, then we are going to try it out and see if we can make it fail in the same way. And so how do we do this? We run the command. It's going to stress it, in fact. So which package is this? In the server package. And then see how fast we can get an error on this. Okay, so we don't need this file anymore. Let's create a to-do file for today. Manually check the connect command. Done. Okay. Add a new automatic test. And now we are going to address or attempt investigate 2 existing issues in that area. The 2 issues are this one and this one. So this is a test that is taking a long time to run because there is, I think, literally a timeout of 20 seconds in it. Although, yeah, so it takes 25 minutes to run. So Tracky Jackie says, I have a Ryzen 7 2700 with 32 gigabytes of RAM. Does this requirement is enough for your studying programming? Oh my gosh, this is so much more than enough. This is like extremely wealthy hardware for any kind of programming task. I think today, like if you're starting learning programming today at school, like even at a very advanced level, you don't need a Ryzen 7 2700. Actually, half of that would be sufficient. And probably 4 gigabytes of RAM would also probably be sufficient. 4, I'm saying 4, not 32. So with 32, you're 8 times more than necessary in terms of memory. So you're good. You're good. No problem at all with that. I like to think that it's possible to become a good programmer without being rich, and therefore it's possible to become a good programmer without having a good computer. So, I mean, I'm not going to advertise the idea that you can use a computer that is 20 years old. When I was a student, I did this, and it was not very successful. But you can get hardware today that is cheap. So thank you for your question. It's very important. But no, becoming a programmer doesn't require good hardware. Now, when you're paid to be a programmer, and then there is something to be said about your productivity later on as part of your job, sometimes it might be a good idea to get a faster computer with more memory in order to become faster at doing the job that you paid for. But it is the employer's responsibility to pay for your hardware. It's never expected that you use your own computer in a job to do programming tasks. The hardware is provided by the employer, and the employer is responsible for finding hardware that is good for your job. And so they will find out something that's fast enough for the job you do. It's not your responsibility. So what we see here is that this test that presumably was failing is not failing anymore. All right, so that is a good idea to report onto this this issue here. I tried to stress this locally and was unable to find a reproducible case. And now we are going to check the failure in more details, because depending on the stack trace, this might connect to some other issues that I know of from recently. So what was the failure again? Test init handshake. All right, what does it say? Huh. Connection refused. Okay, so that's a case where a maybe a test did not use the right server. That's surprising. But it seems to run fine. So that particular test doesn't seem to be the case. So did I do this? Stress initial shake time out 5 minutes. Yeah. Stress raise. Oh. We're going to try again with trace rates. Because with the race detector enabled, the test is going to take much longer and we can in fact run into a timeout. We'll see. Okay, so Tracky Jack is asking, does database is Linux based? All right, does this database run on Linux? Yes. Is it Linux based? No. Does any database? Okay, so first of all, Tracky Jackie, there is something that I need to say. It's going to be a bit blunt, but if you want to become a programmer and if you want to work in computer science and IT, it's going to be pretty important that you get the orders of the words in English properly, because it's very important for people to understand what you write or what you say. So this sentence you just wrote is very unclear to me, and that is something that you will need to clarify. So, would any database run on Linux? Nowadays, most database engines run on Linux yet. Yes. Would databases need a Linux system to run? Many databases do not need a Linux system to run. Actually, more and more programmers that use Mac laptops, and therefore at least they have to run on Mac OS. And then many programmers use Windows systems, and so they have to run on the Windows as well. So what can I say? There is diversity in the world. And does this database I'm working on run on Linux? Yes. Does it require Linux? Well, that's a complicated question, and the short answer is approximately yes, but not exactly. What I mean by this is this database I'm working with here is optimized to run on Linux. So someone who doesn't run it on Linux might run into troubles because we are only optimizing for Linux, but it might run somewhere else as well. I don't know. I mean, I use FreeBSD. I don't use Linux, so I wouldn't know exactly. So here's the answer. I really like those questions. Tracky Jackie, these are good questions. Keep them coming. All right. Don't be sorry for your bad English. It's not a how to call it? It's not something you should be ashamed of or should apologize for. Everyone has to learn English. English is not my native language either. And it took me, maybe I started learning English when I was 12, and it took me, I think, 15 years to start talking English fluently. So it takes a long time to learn English and to speak it properly. And I cannot say I'm using spotless English either. In fact, I make mistakes all the time too. But I do believe that it's super important to know how to order the words properly, at least in writing, in order to phrase questions properly. So there is a thing, actually, there is a psychological study that says people who make mistakes in their speech or their writing will be considered to be less intelligent by other people, like psychologically, like subjectively. That is a bias. That is something that is not based on rationality. It's just an impression. Like language use, and especially in a context that is like work, is going to be always linked to perception of value by other people, and that means that language use has an impact on how people relate to you. So if you want to have better quality answers, better teaching, better feedback on your work, and generally better relationships in the work, then having simple English is okay. In terms, you don't need to have a large vocabulary, but grammar is pretty important. So you don't have to be sorry. I'm just saying you have to work on it. It's important. Like if you have to choose between becoming very good at math and becoming very good at English to become a programmer, then becoming good at English has to come first. So we are going to use my issue from earlier for this one. All right. So no additional data here, and now we're going to try and investigate this one. All right. So this is a separate issue. Let's try this out. Okay, so this test doesn't want to fail. Okay, Tracky Jackie says, my uncle suggested for you to learn to become a cybersecurity expert, presumably, but it is hard to learn Kali Linux for ethical hacking and Red Hat server for server operator. Mostly in India, 70% of people work on Linux and 20% on Windows 10 or Mac. Okay, so there are 3 different points in what you're saying. Point number 1, your uncle suggested you to learn to become cybersecurity experts. I would say your uncle has a good idea. In the future, cybersecurity experts will become more important than programmers, more important than they are today, and more important than programmers in some environments. What this means is that it's actually a pretty good job, but it is also a quite challenging job, and it's a very different kind of job than being a programmer. So it's unlikely that a regular computer science degree at school will be a good preparation to become a cybersecurity expert. There are trainings programs to train on security, but they might not be called general computer science. I don't know actually what is the best way to teach to learn cybersecurity these days. There are books, I know, but I think it would be much more useful to talk to people who are cybersecurity experts today and ask them, what did you study to get your job today? What did you get asked during the job interviews? And see what they say. That will be the right way to learn what you need to know. Now, other things. So it was hard to learn Kali Linux. Actually, I don't know what Kali Linux is. So let's look at Kali Linux. I have no idea what Kali Linux is. Oh. Okay. Okay, so it's a Linux distribution that's optimized for security research. Sure. Yes, if you want to become a cybersecurity expert, then you probably want to learn Kali Linux. Kali Linux is a good thing. I'm very glad it exists. I didn't know it did, but I'm glad it does. In India, 70% of people work on Linux and 20% on Windows 10 or Mac. Yes, actually, I would say most of the programmers I know personally work on Linux. Yes, it's unusual to work on Windows primarily if you're a programmer, especially on back-end work. Front-end people are much more flexible, I would say, but back-end, yeah, Linux it is. It's very different from what it was 20 years ago, but that's what it is now. Cool. All right. So this doesn't stress with stress command, but we're going to stress race this. Let's see. I do have a old version of Go installed. Is a cybersecurity job in cybersecurity risky? I have answers to that question. The short answer is no. It's not risky. It's not life risky. Certainly not. It's not risky. It's not an unstable job. But my answer is limited to the case where it is your job, where you're paid to do it. If you are employed as a cybersecurity expert and there is an organization around you to pay you and to protect your job, then it's a very regular job. Like same ways that if you work, for example, for secret services, for a government, as a computer analyst, and you're just protected by the government. If you work for a company, you're protected by the company. There is no risk there. But at the same time, there are a lot of freelancers, people who work independently as cybersecurity experts. And in that case, there are 3 different things that you can do as a job. Number 1, you can be a for-hire security expert where people reach out to you before you start working for them. Like you have a reputation and then people will say, I know you, can you come and help? In that case, it's nearly as if you were employed. So nothing to say, it's not risky. The second thing is when you are a pirate, like not a pirate, a bandit. Like if you're a security expert, what you can do is violate the security of systems and then share your findings on the black market with criminals, and that becomes your job. If you do this, then you can make a lot of money, but it's very illegal, and also it's very possible that the people who are owning the systems that you violate in that way will be very unhappy, and in that case, you can have problems with the police if they're good people, but if they are very, very unhappy, they can indeed hire other bandits to get rid of you. In that case, it's very risky. Very, very risky. So, the first one I said, if you work for a company that's called completely white, white hat security, that's not risky. The second one I was saying, well, you attack systems and then you sell your findings on the black market, that's called black hat security, that's not ethical, that's very risky. And then there is a middle ground. The middle ground is when you work for a company before they know it. Like you go to their systems, you find out their failures, and then after you find the failures, you go to speak to the company and said, I found something for you. Do you want to hire me so that I can explain to you? That is called ethical black hat security. That is a gray area. Some companies nowadays, modern companies especially, will know how to do this right, and then they will gladly accept your suggestions, and they will pay you for this, and they're not necessarily happy about it, but they will respect you, and it's going to be just a job as well. Just need a bit of skills to communicate well, but it's possible. In that case, it's not very risky. But there are some companies, when you approach them in an ethical way, they still get angry and mad at you, and then they will try to make your life difficult. In that case, you can still have temporary problems with the police or the law enforcement. And those problems are temporary because if your work is ethical, then usually with a good lawyer, you can get out of the problem. But I would say generally black hat security, even when ethical, is slightly more risky than complete white hat security. I hope that answers the question. All right, so still no failure. Which is better, work for nation or work for corporate? I don't know the answer to that question. Generally, corporate work is higher money, more money in the job, but less job safety. And for government, it's also a bit less money, still a lot of money, but a bit less money than corporate, but more job security. So it's a trade-off. I would say you get to choose which one you want. All right, so again, there's a go routine leak, is it not? Yeah. I'm going to write the same here because I think it's the same issue. All right. So those two issues we have investigated by running the tests, and there was no failures on this test system. So it doesn't seem like this is a real clear bug, and therefore we can just not investigate this further. We just assume that the code works. All right, and so we can come back to our main story. All right, so this one here, we need to spell out what to do about this. So secure init. All right. All right. So we need to spell out the issue, what we need to work on here. All right. All right. So what's complicated here is that really Okay, so I want to rephrase this. Today's the start command requires TLS. Okay, so what is complicated is that at the moment the process starts, we do not yet know which of the two situations apply. In the base start code, which of the two modes apply is discovered after the node attempts. It discovered data files are loaded from disk, and the current cluster status is determined so we cannot implement the automatic logic in start by just looking at the state of the TLS certificates on disk. We also need to wait until the KV layer has determined whether actually after the new node has attempted to join another node from the other side of the RPC connection. Need to know whether the cluster is initialized. Right, so I see that Splat Sharkbait has just followed, so welcome. Tracky Jackie says, thank you for your suggestion and for your precious time. Yes, well, you're very welcome. This is exactly what a live stream is about, to provide some connections and some conversation. So you can ask questions and I will answer them. That's fair. Just looking at the state of the TLS certificates on this, we also need to know whether the rest of the cluster is initialized already or not. All right. Just looking. We can do this in either of two ways. Either we want this to be fully automatic. In that case, we must look at the join command. There are two situations to consider. Join mentions other nodes. In that case, we can connect to the other node to see the cluster is already initialized. Join does not mention other nodes. The current node is going to be a join target for other nodes. In that case, we don't know whether the rest of the cluster is initialized already until another already initialized joins. So let's number those options. we are okay with asking the operator to differentiate the two cases. This may be attractive option because we know in practice that orchestration tools do differentiate those cases already, so we may not be asking extra work. In that case, we'd have a start actually, that is not. That's completely bogus. It's possible that the second case here is bogus because of the discussion and then there is a related issue that we can briefly look at. I remember. It's closed. It's from me and it's about init. It's closed, I said. Oh. This one. This one. After so let us focus on the first case for a bit. At the moment the process starts, it knows its join flag already, but not its TLS certificates. So it cannot connect safely to the remote node yet. What can it connect to determine node status? Thanks to this issue, there is a non-authenticated endpoint that could be used for this purpose. All right. The details need to be investigated. All right, so this is going to be server something, server, PC, security, and here. All right. Now we're going to mention this here. All right, so we updated this issue. So it's possible it's possible that we cannot fix this today, because it might be actually a bit of discussion and work before we get there. But we'll see. There are a couple of other things we can do. However, I just noticed it's been more than 1 hour since we started. And, Lime T008 is asking on the chat, do you work for Cockroach Labs? I like to say I work with Cockroach Labs. I work on CockroachDB. And, I mean, I'm in the Netherlands. Cockroach Labs is a US company, so legally I'm not allowed to work for Cockroach Labs directly. So that answers that, hopefully. But Cockroach Labs has, and I have a partnership of sorts. So the work is related. So to continue on this, we might be able to do a few things, but it's been more than 1 hour, and it is very important to take a break, not be sitting at the computer for too long in the same time. So I'm going to take a 5 minutes break, and we are going to reconvene after the break, maybe in 5 minutes from now. So see you in a bit. And we are back on stream. Hi everyone. So the PRs that we were looking into a bit earlier failed to build because of an unrelated test failure. So we are unfortunately going to address this. So we are going to issue a skip for that failing test and maybe, I mean, briefly look into it, but maybe just, oh, actually, maybe this one. Mm. See. Ah, come on. Yeah. It's also failing on the master branch. So let's file this. Okay. Let's skip. So LimeT008 on the chat is asking, I just wanted to say that it's an amazing project and it's your go-to development database even for Postgres project, just to the ease of spinning it up on Docker. We're also using it in production for a few applications. Also, the documentation is way better and clearer compared to the Postgres documentation. That is a big compliment because I can tell you I'm a very big fan of Postgres documentation. Postgres has very good documentation. But if you say CockroachDB documentation is better, I'll take that. Very nice. All right. So, oops. Let's try to stress this to see if we can reproduce a problem. Limty008 says, Postgres documentation is great, but sometimes it's just too verbose if you need to find something quickly. Well, that's why you have Stack Overflow, obviously. All right. Is there something that is not being stopped properly? Skull gets corrupt. Report diagnostics. Oh. This does not customize the reporting URL. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's someone who is skip. Okay, I don't remember how skip works. To and book. Maybe we have the same issue over here. Not here. Not here. Not here. Okay, so it's just this test. Skip with issue. Ah, there's a T. All right. Oops. Oops. Oh. This is... oh, I have my... Okay. Come on. Gonna get away. Just gonna get away. And then this one. Oops. Okay. And I want a reviewer who is currently active. I'll try this person. Another person. Here. All right. Cool. right, do I need to link those two things together? Yeah, probably this needs to be explained in the issues as here. There are leaking coroutines when the test ends. This is not surprising because the test contains an unlimited call to, and what is the name of the function that's being called? Report diagnostics. If the reg server isn't available, that call blocks asynchronously and the coroutine leaks. This should be fixed by making the test impervious to reg server failures by using a temporary in-memory collector instead and customizing C. And what was the name of that URL? C. Fields. All right, so that's a real bug. Cool, cool, cool. All right, and this one here is failing. So that's another PR we were working on a bit earlier. Let's see why the CI is failing on this. Yeah, okay. This is this one. Okay. All right. So what was this failure about? Oh, it's the same failure. Oh. Okay. Cool. Well, it does certainly seem like most of our CI right now is going to fail because of this little infrastructure issue. So as I explained earlier during the stream, when there is an infrastructure issue, tests start to fail for no reason relevant to the test itself or the code that is being tested. And therefore, more or less, all the signal we get from failing tests is, or failing CI is just noise. So let's consider that our work for today, unfortunately, has to be cut short a little bit until that problem is fixed. We can't really make a lot of progress in terms of merging PRs and so on. It's kind of sad, but in order to move forward here, it's going to be important to go and talk to people to say, well, there is work to be done. And therefore, we need probably to have someone look into it. And so like this kind of communication doesn't need to happen on stream during the live stream at least. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to investigate this, push people to do the things. And then once that is fixed, then we will be able to resume the work maybe in the next stream. And so stay tuned. And for today, let's say we have made some progress in this area of work by adding a unit test, verifying that the issue is actually fixed by this PR, and adding a new end-to-end test for the new feature. And we did an analysis of what to do in the automatic processing, and we found an issue here with this analysis in the text here. And hopefully people will join and explain what they think should happen here as a discussion. The other topics we will cover also in time in a follow-up stream. Okay, so today's stream is a bit shorter than usual. Again, it's because we have some kind of unresolved issues due to some circumstances out of our control. And that's what it is. Sometimes the job of a programmer is to wait for other people to fix things. I don't have control over everything. So here we are. Now, I really enjoyed everyone's company today. Like, the chat was super active, and I was really glad to have an opportunity to answer questions and provide some input on questions that were not exactly related to code, but doesn't matter. And hopefully by next time we will have made some steps in this project here, and there will be more to show, more to demonstrate, and more to be proud of. So that was it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing. And we will see each other again at the latest next week. Goodbye, everyone.